we could start getting things back to relative normal as we get into the second and third quarter of the year, where people can start thinking about doing things that were too dangerous just months ago. But we've got to put all those things together, Jake. We can't just wish it happening. We've got to get the vaccine, it's got to be deployed, and we can't abandon fundamental public health measures. You can approach a degree of normality while still doing some fundamental public health things that synergize with the vaccine to get us back to normal.
So not until the second or third quarter of 2021, though. Christmas is probably not going to be possible.
Yeah,
It's time to move on. The election's over. There wasn't fraud. There wasn't anything else. 6 states, swing states flipped from Trump to Biden. Those 6 states, in each of them, the margin is not even close. No court is going to overturn this election. Joe Biden will be installed as president. So Republicans get over it.
72 million people voted for Donald Trump. What does that say to you about the state of this country?
Well, what it says is that we are still deeply divided. The power of that alternative worldview that's presented in the media that those voters consume, it carries a lot of weight.
Are you worried about that?
Yes. It's very hard for our democracy to function if we are operating on just completely different sets of facts.
This looks like the effort to carry out an end game in the effort against him. Do you concur?
Oh, absolutely, and it's been organized and conducted with the help of Silicon Valley people, the big tech companies, the social media companies, and even the media companies. And I'm going to release the Kraken. It is indeed a very foul mess. It is farther and wider and deeper than we ever thought, but we are going to go after it, and I am going to expose every one of them.
News today, for all the hedge fund guys, let me give you a flashing news flash. Populism is on the rise. Nationalism is on the rise. Sovereignty is on the rise. It's an unstoppable force. It's an unstoppable force. You are not going to steal this election. Biden's already been considered, I saw a thing from YouGov, 80%, 78% of the Trump voters know this thing's trying to be stolen, right? He's illegitimate. He's illegal. He's feckless. No Democrats in the House, no Democrats in the Senate. They're not giving up a seat to go sign up for this disaster. It's not going to happen. I want to tell Klaus Schwab, the brains behind the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and there are forces moving that I think are leading to a Fourth Industrial Revolution, okay? But we can't let that, remember, the future is not to be discovered. The future is to be made. Your action, through human agency, we create the future. And let me tell you what the future is for all political types out there. It's what happened on Saturday, topped off and crowned by a great victory by Burgess Owens. We still haven't gotten down to the rest of the victories. I think you're going to pick up a couple more seats. And hat tip to McCarthy for recruiting the great guys. But I want to pivot from the forces of light. And if you ever had a doubt what side of the football you're on, in this self-organizing nature of this, just like the revolution, right? Just like the revolution, a self-organizing system. We're going to show you footage and footage and footage of Saturday. Vish. Footage and footage and footage of Saturday. Denver. This is the key to this. Okay, is this now we're going to the side of darkness? Okay, yeah. Fine. Okay, now the forces of light were out there with hundreds of thousands of upright citizens, veterans, moms, kids, blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, regardless of your gender, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your religion. And then comes the night. And so Maggie and Raheem, take it away here. What happened? What happened? This is BLM. This is Antifa. They're destructive. They are a destructive force. They are on the side of evil. Okay? It's not me saying it. Look at the streets. What do they got to do? They got to go destroy. They got to go into restaurants. They got to destroy to intimidate you. Well, that crowd on Saturday is not going to be intimidated. They're not going to back down. Number one, there's more of them than there are of the bad guys. Raheem, Maggie.
Well, look, I mean, firstly, you saw during daylight hours on Saturday, completely peaceful demonstrations taking place all day, almost a carnival atmosphere out there, right? People meeting each other, exchanging ideas. Everything was friendly. And then as dusk set in, you saw the emergence of these black-clad Antifa BLM types at key areas around the city. This was not localized to just Freedom Plaza, but actually you saw up on New York Avenue, you saw up on Connecticut Avenue, you saw what they were trying to do is actually move throughout the city to a central pinch point. Now, some will argue that it's not big or clever for the MAGA people to go down to Black Lives Matter Plaza and demonstrate there because guess what's going to happen? Sure, but they're exercising their First Amendment rights and they are well within their rights to go down to whatever street they want and demonstrate, especially a street outside the White House. But as you saw the day go on, you see these pictures up on the screen for the video audience here, you'll see it, young people, families, children, in fact, being harassed and targeted by Antifa. There are Antifa activists and Black Lives Matter activists who are waving knives around and getting challenged. There was a video of a man, and I appreciate that this particular man was in the fracas himself, and voluntarily in the fracas himself, but had turned his back on it to walk away and was sucker punched in the face.
He got crushed.
He got crushed, and a lady runs by. I won't say a lady runs by, steals his phone.
Yep.
And the guy that had sucker punched him, I believe, was also apprehended, also arrested. Turns out, previous criminal charges, including one of child abuse. And we're seeing that time and time again with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, by the way.
These are bad units.
People who have criminal records, and a lot of people involved with these associations that have criminal records as it pertains to child abuse as well. That's something that should stick in people's minds. What perverse people we're dealing with here. But just finally, Maggie, before I hand over to you on this, is, you know, our lead story on the National Pulse at the moment is the fact that we still have not seen condemnations. No condemnations from Biden. These are Joe Biden, these are your guys on television right now. No condemnation from Kamala Harris. No condemnation from Nancy Pelosi. No condemnation from any ranking Democrats. No condemnation from congressional Democrats. No condemnation from local Democrats. No condemnation from Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Because they can completely ignore the entire story, right? Because the mainstream media is not going to play these clips. They're not going to cover this violence happening at all. And in fact, they're even scrubbing it from the internet on social media. Because,
what do you mean by that? Tell us that.
So the people that are seeing these clips, we know what's going on. We see this stuff. I follow a lot of other conservative accounts who shared the images like the ones that we've just played of people being assaulted, people being attacked in the streets by, black-clad individuals who are attacking Trump supporters and their families. But the mainstream media is not covering it all, and social media is actually sending messages to people saying you either need to delete this video of these attacks or your account will be deleted. And I've seen this popping up multiple times where people actually screenshot that warning notice from Instagram and they're posting that notice and saying, I'm sorry I had to take down these videos, guys. Here's what's going on. So it appears that these social media platforms are protecting Antifa and Black Lives Matter from being exposed as violent entities.
Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
You got the red accents in the hair. What do you think about what's happening? How far should President Trump take this?
Well, he should take this all the way to the Supreme Court, as far as he can win. I think what's going on is that everyone they're dealing with their cognitive dissonance. One side of the country claims that Biden won, but they kind of know he didn't win. It's like he's like the O.J. Simpson of today, where everyone knows he's guilty, but they just kind of want him to win anyway, just to get back at the other side. So right now, I mean, this side is just trying to, like, pretty much waking everyone else to the murder that the Democrats are getting with, of course, with abortion and also with the finances that are trying to destroy the economy. And, you know, people would try to say, oh, well, this is all conspiracy. But I feel like COVID was injected in America to just bring us down underneath China and the rest of the countries so that we can fall behind them and also, you know, continue their gravy train. And right now it just seems like everyone is against Trump because he's stopping their gravy train. And just this crowd is evidence of the fraud. I mean, you did not see this kind of energy for the other side. And force anyone to kind of deny the reality, you have to be dishonest with yourself. You have to. And at the same time, I kind of feel sorry for the other side because all they know is what the media tells them or what the media allows them to know.
I can't say it any better than that, Steve.
Welcome. You're in the War Room live from Capitol Hill. It's Tuesday, the 17th of November, the year of our Lord, 2020. We are 14 days into the defeat of Joe Biden and the Democratic apparatus. Embrace the suck. All the media is like in full meltdown. Oh, my God, we got to crush the War Room. These guys, they're calling for violence. That would be au contraire. They're called figures of speech. We're not going to stop. We are on a roll. We won on November 3rd. We're closing on this victory. The feckless Joe Biden. This is how feckless, and this is the tell. He can't even get no names, 0 names want to sign up for a supposed cabinet. 0 names. Nothing. Nada. The null set. You know why? They know he's not going to be inaugurated on January 20th. They don't look foolish. So we're 14 days into the defeat of Biden in the whining and gnashing of teeth of the globalist. So, and we're going to go around today from Georgia to Michigan to Nevada, obviously to Pennsylvania.
Continuing on with the statistical case against Biden, the improbability that these results are valid. The second point of my op-ed is outperformance versus Obama. It is really quite stunning how much Joe Biden outperformed Obama, but only in the places that mattered in battleground states. In other words, we did not see this on a national basis, this kind of outperformance that we saw in a place like Montgomery County, which is outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, a key, mostly swing county that leans slightly blue. In 2012, Obama got 233,000 votes in Montgomery County. But look at what happened this year for Biden. He got 313,000 votes in Montgomery County. He more than doubled Obama's margin of victory in Montgomery County. And by the way, population growth does not account for this. The county only added 22,000 total residents between 2012 and 2020. Is it really possible that this lazy and doddering candidate, Joe Biden, was able to so massively outperform a politician with rock star appeal like Barack Obama? Again, it is a statistical anomaly that demands more investigation, more auditing of the results.
So, Steve Cortez, has there been any response by the Democrats or even no one? And Jack Maxey brought up the other day, no one's asked Obama in all these interviews about his new book. Hey, you're supposed to be such a rock star. Sleepy Joe Biden, like, blew you out where it counted. Nobody asked him that question. Nobody, not one. He's doing interviews nonstop.
Right, and only where it counted, Steve. That's the point. So in other words, he did not outperform in places like Los Angeles. You know, as I said, in settled states, either deeply blue or deeply red states, we don't see this phenomenon, which should make everybody very, very suspicious. In this case of Montgomery County, Obama won it. And look, I'll concede this to Obama. I won't say much about him, okay? But when it comes to politics, he was absolutely a rock star, all right? He brought a level of charisma and mystique that we hadn't seen at that point since Ronald Reagan. And he was able to win Montgomery County, which is basically a swing county, leans a little blue. He was able to win it by 59,000 votes. It's one of the reasons that he became president of the United States. You're telling me that Joe Biden, from his basement, this corrupt and lazy and doddering career swamp dinosaur, that he was able to more than double the margin of victory in Montgomery County. He won it by 131,000 votes in 2020 versus only 59,000 votes surplus for Obama. I think that this it absolutely stinks to high heaven, and it tells us that this is not just unlikely, but in all likelihood illegal. What happened here? That fraud must be present. I mean, that is where the numbers lead you. And thankfully, by the way, speaking of Pennsylvania, Team Trump will be arguing in court today, and I believe that Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and others will provide the proof for the cheating and for the shenanigans that unfortunately unfolded in this country, that these numbers I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks all point toward. One of them being outperformance of Obama. I think, even hardcore Democrats have a hard time explaining that. How is it possible that Biden outperformed Obama to that degree and only in the places that mattered electorally?
Going to back down 1 inch? Our audience is not going to back down 1 inch. You want to jump in here, Maggie? It looks like you're...
I'm just cracking up because I can't believe that I'm sitting here watching kind of half watching this hearing against tech censorship, and this senator is basically trying to pressure Mark Zuckerberg into censoring you. It kind of makes our case for us, does it not? And I have to say, I mean, good for Mark Zuckerberg. He actually stood up for you and said he would not commit to taking down your Facebook page, even though Blumenthal kept trying to twist his arm into.
Because the guys at Facebook know it's a figure of speech. That's 100%. And by the way, Christopher Wray, President Trump should start to act like it's his second term, and that is not bombing Iran. Iran is a junior partner of the Chinese Communist Party. Hammer the Chinese Communist Party, cut them off from the dollar, and the mullahs go away. Don't let the neocons around you talk you into going into a shooting war. We don't need a shooting war. You can break these guys with economic warfare, but act like it's your second term. Start with firing Wray and firing Fauci. And you should investigate Fauci. All of Fauci's phone records, all of his text messages, everything he leaked to the media to contradict what was going on in the task force should come out immediately. There should be an investigation of Fauci. Once again, this guy always moves the goalposts. Now he's talking about we need to be shut down to the third quarter of 2021. Oh, until you get the vaccine, right? Of which they're going to have two classes of citizenships here, the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. So, and everybody's got to get back to this vaccine and figure the whole thing out, right? What's being spun and what's reality. But now you got Fauci just throwing out no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, except for the elites, right? They're having parties, and, the governor of California's having a big party, and, Nancy Pelosi's having a big dinner. Why is she having a big dinner? Nancy, remember, I'm the one promoting you all the time as a master political strategist. You got to help me out here. Get a little something for the effort.
Let me ask about Facebook community standards, which ban language that, quote, incites or facilitates serious violence. As you know, on November 5th, Steve Bannon, in a Facebook Live video, called for beheadings of Dr. Fauci and FBI Director Wray for not acting more favorably toward President Trump. Twitter banned Bannon for these remarks. You removed the video, Mr. Zuckerberg, but on Thursday you reportedly told Facebook employees that Bannon had not violated enough policies that he should be banned from Facebook. My question to you is, how many times has Steve Bannon allowed the call for the murder of government officials before Facebook suspends his account?
Senator, as you say, the content in question did violate our policies, and we took it down. Having a content violation does not automatically mean your account gets taken down, and the number of strikes varies depending on the type of offense. So if people are posting terrorist content or child exploitation content, then the first time that they do it, then we will take down their account. For other things, it's multiple. I'd be happy to follow up afterwards. We try not to disclose these.
Down his account.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Will you commit to taking down that account, Steve Bannon's account?
Senator, no, that's not what our policies would suggest that we should do in this case.
Boom. Hey, Blumenthal, how about taking down, or how about putting on your account Truth in Advertising, you gutless coward, of how you stolen valor and you tried to steal the valor of our Vietnam veterans, right, with your lies about your service in Vietnam. You're a disgrace. You're a total, complete disgrace. And I love the fact that we got you worked up. Joe Biden's illegitimate. Joe Biden is illegal. You're trying to steal a massive victory by Donald J. Trump, and we're not going to allow it to happen. You can sit there in all your Senate hearings. You can do everything you want. You can whine and cry and do it all. You do not have the consent of the governed. And every day we peel this thing back, it stinks more to high heaven. The audacity and gall, the way that you're trying to steal it. So I want the two covers of magazines that people should focus on, that are mouthpieces for the party of Davos. Right? Remember, no conspiracy, but no coincidences, are the Time magazine from the guy that Salesforce, that guy, a huge globalist, has the Great Reset, right? The Great Reset cover from about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then I think the starkest, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer, right? But I know some anti-vaxxers. Right? You look at that, and that to me so graphically sums up what the globalist party of Davos, right? The dark tunnel that we're in, right? And the light at the end of the tunnel, that bright light, is a needle with the vaccine in it.
Every totalitarian system needs a boogeyman. They do. You had the Nazis, they had the Jews were responsible for everything. You have the Soviets, they had kids walking around the field trying to find potato bugs that the evil Americans had put in their fields. This totalitarian system that they want to impose on us through a giant election fraud is the same. And they are using the virus in the same way that totalitarian regimes in the past have used these false boogeymen to create fear for control.
Okay, we all agreed that we want to get the economy back on track. We need our workers to be back on the job by getting the virus under control. We're going in a very dark winter. Things are going to get much tougher before they get easier. And that requires sparing no effort to fight COVID so that we can open our businesses safely, resume our lives, and put this pandemic behind us. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done. And they all agreed. That means rallying the country behind a national strategy with robust public health measures like mandatory masking, widely available testing with rapid results, scaled-up production of life-saving treatments and therapeutics, and safe, equitable, and free distribution of the vaccine.
The safest way to celebrate Thanksgiving this year is at home with the people you live with and through virtual celebrations. Gathering indoors with people who aren't members of your household is a higher risk activity for spreading the virus. Please know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because of the sacrifices Americans have made and the hard work that so many have done, we will have the chance to celebrate holidays much more safely with family and friends, not so far in the future.
0%. And as a result, we do need to close our schools for the coming days. No one is happy about this decision. We all, in fact, are feeling very sad about this decision because so much good work has been put into keeping the schools opened and opening them up to begin with. Let's start there. Opening the schools when almost no other major school system in America opened, making them so safe. But we set a very clear standard, and we need to stick to that standard. And I want to emphasize to parents, to educators, to staff, to kids, that we intend to come back and come back as quickly as possible.
When we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens, and we closed the schools, don't you remember that? It was 3 weeks ago. Okay, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already. That's the law, an orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
Follow the facts. Wow. From Azar, who last time I looked, correct me if I'm wrong, Fog City Midge. Is Azar not Donald J. Trump's head of Health and Human Services? Did he just say no Thanksgiving? Or excuse me, Thanksgiving with maybe some family members only, pilgrim style, out on the picnic table in the backyard, right? And you got Cuomo losing it. The part about this Cuomo clip, I think de Blasio drops the bomb about the schools closing right in the middle of his press conference.
That's called communication, Steve.
Well, those two, as you know, when we used to do the WABC show back in the spring during the height of this thing, it was, but on a very serious nature, you're in War Room Pandemic. We started this show, the transition from impeachment to pandemic before the impeachment was finished because we knew that this was a world historical event. And so it has become. In Joe Biden's dark winter of 2020 and 2021, it doesn't look like it's going to stop. My favorite, Tony Fauci, the Fauci, is telling us it's not going to stop to the end of the third quarter next year with the vaccine. But now we've got the politicians, and I don't think the right hand knows what the left's doing. And this is one of the things we've always said is that it's best to get the evidence, the data, and to start making decisions, I think, on targeted interventions, right, or how you're going to do it. But I'm going to turn it over to Jack Maxey. But Maggie, welcome back to the East Coast here as the weather gets cooler. And I think this is pretty shocking. I know a lot of people in New York City. I don't know if the unions are back at this or not, but a lot of folks are like in shock. Particularly, New York City's become a ghost town. And, I think it's 10,000 empty apartments. It's all of this. And now you've had this kind of, it's hard enough raising the kids. They had a terrible situation with the distance learning, with engagement, not as bad as Chicago, if you remember that, Jack.
Welcome back to War Room. I'm Maggie Vandenberg, and I have a special video for you, my coverage from the Million MAGA March this Saturday. Let's go ahead and roll that.
This is Fog City Midge in Washington, D.C. at the March for Trump, Million MAGA March, the Stop the Steal March. All of these groups came together to stand up for President Trump and to speak out against the election fraud. So tens of thousands of patriots are here. Let's go talk to some people. You came out all the way from Texas to attend this. What inspired you to come so far just to show up to support the president?
Because someday people are going to ask me, where were you in November of 2020? Where were you when your country, the greatest country in the world, was stolen by crooked politicians? And I don't want to say that I sat at home watching on TV and doing nothing. I wanted to say I was here serving my country once again. I served 5 years in the Marine Corps in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I am not going to sit by while the evil tentacles of socialism wrap itself around the greatest country in the world. I will not be quiet. I will not go quietly into that good night. So right now, we're going to come up here and we're going to peacefully protest, and we're going to stop the steal, and we're going to get 4 more years of Trump and keep America great.
What's going to happen to the country if this fraud is allowed to go through? It'll destroy the country. We're not the type of people who are going to go around and burn down cities. We're not going to do all that. But we're not going to let our country be taken from us either.
It's not about stopping the voting process from happening. It's about stopping the illegal ballots from being counted and having a fair, honest election. This should be a landslide victory for Trump. That's the fact.
And Trump's been fighting for us for almost 4 years. And this is the least we could do, is come out.
Oh, I love the beer passed by. I was crying. I'm still crying. I'm sorry.
He is the best president
ever.
Why do you love him so much?
He does everything right, and he's for the people.
We love you, President Trump. Do not concede. We know you won this election fair and square.
It is BS, and we have to make sure that this doesn't happen again. If they win this time, we'll never be able to stop them again. Another Republican will never win ever again. If you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't care who you are, come out here because this is our democracy. We have to defend it. President Trump, I got your back, man.
And we, the Vietnamese Americans, support Trump. We love the country and we want a fair election. There's no way that the Democrat and Joe Biden steal the election from the country, from American people. We will fight all the way and we'll demand justice for America and for the President Trump. We're here to support We love him. Trump. We love him. He fights so hard for this country, him and his whole family. And we will stand by President Trump and fight until the end.
We need to stop the steal.
Stop the steal.
Because Trump love America. Trump love American. So we love him. We want put Joe Biden in jail.
We're taking over D.C. right now. Like, this is the largest Trump crowd I've ever seen in my life.
We can recognize BS when we see it. So you have almost 1 million people here, I would guess, who know what's going on, who have awoken to what's going on in the media. Now they're coming out in person to show out. So for years, people have kept their opinions to online or anonymous, forums, and now people are actually showing up, showing their faces to show support for the president.
This is living evidence that
people believe in what he's done and what he said, and he's been definitely the best president of my lifetime. You fought for us for 4 years. We're going to fight for you now. Don't concede. We've got your back.
We want people to know, hey, what's going on isn't right, and we really should stand up for our country, stand up for what you believe in.
Keep going, Mr. President. We love you for what you've done for this nation, and we look forward to 4 more years.
I love you so much. I wish I could re-enlist, but I can't. So I'm here fighting every day for you like you're fighting for us.
I came out to show support to Donald Trump, that I appreciate him fighting hard for us for 4 years, and that I'm here to support him in the fight to win the next 4 years.
Came to stop the steal. Came to make sure that Trump gets in there.
We just want the election to be fully audited, and we want to show support for a man who has done an amazing job representing the people.
This time, this election is cheating. We cannot believe. If they win, no more democratic system. So we must stand up.
They can try and steal the election from the president, but we're not stupid. We understand the Constitution. We know how the Constitution works. This will go to the Supreme Court. There's more than an abundance of election fraud all across the country. Keep fighting the fight. We've got your back, and we're not stopping. You see who's out here. We're not stopping for you, Mr. President, because you ain't stopping for us.
Joe Biden is senile. This guy is a complete prostitute for the elites. Our support out here means everything, because we can't rely on the Justice Department. We can't rely on all these other entities that are supposed to be there for our interests. We the people have to speak. And by us doing this, we're putting a fire under their ass so that they can't steal this thing.
I think that people need to be able to vote and know that it's going to get counted. I think that's all this sketchy business. It's very odd.
USA, 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 USA.
The people out here are pumped. Why do you think, though, that there's this level of enthusiasm for this president?
I think it's just because of what he's been able to do for the country and how he's moved the country forward. I've never seen a politician come in here and gain so much support and a following. People love this guy. He pulled up, and everybody would have swarmed his car to give him a hug. I think he's been able to move the country forward and put our country first. That's why so many people ride for him. I ride for him.
I gotta pause you just to take this in. Take this in. Look at this.
We're so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, clouds bursting in air, gave proof of night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free,
We got some love over here.
You know you got some love. I'm a big fan of the War Room, big fan of Fox City Midge. You got to take it to the Democrats and tell them you ain't going to steal it from us. We see what you're doing in Georgia. We see what you're doing in Pennsylvania. We see what you're doing in Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona. We're not going to let that happen. And we have your back, and we're going to fight because you fought for us for 4 years. We're going to fight for you until December 14th or January 20th or however long it takes for you to become the next president of the United States.
This has been an amazing day out in Washington, D.C. at the Stop the Steal March for Trump Million MAGA March. There's been so many names for this group that came together to show their support.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every...
Oh, definitely, Lou. I've just gotten some stunning evidence from a first-hand witness, a high-ranking military officer who was present when Smartmatic was designed in a way that and I'm going to just read you some of these statements, if you don't mind, so I get them exactly right from the affidavit. Designed in a way that the system could change the vote of each voter without being detected. He wanted the software itself to function in such a manner that if the voter were to place their thumbprint or fingerprint on a scanner, then the thumbprint would be tied to a record of the voter's name and identity as having voted, but that voter would not be tracked to the changed vote. He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez. After the Smartmatic electoral management system was put in place, he closely observed several elections where the results were manipulated using the Smartmatic software. One such election was December 2006 when Chavez was running against Rosales. Chavez won with a landslide over Rosales, a margin of nearly 6 million votes for Chavez versus 3.7 million for Rosales. In 2013, he witnessed another Venezuelan national election where the Smartmatic management system was used to manipulate and change the results for Chavez. And it goes on and on. He was in the...
That is Sidney Powell, and she's circling the enemy here. People should understand there's multiple data teams that are all over this. In fact, one of the better ones, or a really good one that came out early, was Raheem Kassam. Has one up on the National Pulse yesterday that goes through Michigan and goes through Pennsylvania. This one goes to, I think, specifically Pennsylvania. There are multiple data teams working on Michigan and Wisconsin. There's a data team working in Georgia. There's one in Nevada that I know of, and multiple. I've talked to a number of these people, and they're grinding away. Sidney Powell's got a separate investigation going on the Dominion voting system. Maggie, you've got some breaking news. Is something up on social media right now about Wisconsin?
Yeah, this is interesting. So a fellow named Andrew Hitt, he is the chairman of the Republican Party of Wisconsin.
Yep.
And he tweeted, breaking, Wisconsin election commissions, after seeing President Trump's recount petition and objections, is trying to change the recount manual at an emergency meeting tonight at 6 p.m. to make objections harder to make. This must be stopped.
You've seen the rats scramble right now. The cockroaches are trying to scramble to try to hide how they are trying to steal this election. Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons that we're going to spend a lot more time in the pandemic, the president's got 4 years and 60 days, 70 days ahead of him, right? There's going to be, I think, a rethinking of how one approaches this pandemic. I would actually recommend, we're the first ones to tell the president or recommend the president be a wartime president back in the spring. We had the recommendation that instead of doing the 30 days to do the suppress the curve, we were to crush the virus. If you're going to do it, shut down, actually do a quarantine like Wuhan, don't have any domestic travel. If you're going to do 30 days, do 30 days, right? So we've always been the hardest core. In fact, the president said at a press conference when he was asked about the show, he goes, "Yes, Steve, it's always he's always going to give you the hardest, he's always going to take the hardest road." And Western Florida, the Panhandle, but also he's one of the top voices and one of the top young voices in the MAGA movement. So what people, we had this story in the Washington Post today about the show and the podcast and Rudy and all that. And this audience is metastasizing every day. And the question gets to be, is this a futile exercise, or is this exercise? You were there at the end when he put it on his shoulders, took it across the goal line, and as we preached for months and months and months, the game day victory is going to be unbelievable, right? But you could see that the fix was in, or as Tariq calls it, the finesse, right? That it was going to be in, and they were just going to hold back, like they used to do in Broward County and was in Palm Beach County in Florida. Wait till Pensacola and the Panhandle thing and hold back. And if we're within striking distance, all of a sudden we're going to find what we got to find. But now we're in it. They're going to have a press conference at noon over at the RNC headquarters. We've got this situation in Wisconsin. We'll give you more details later, but it's a real fight in Wisconsin. You got a thing in Michigan where they're talking about decertifying this or not able to certify it. You've got Georgia with the great lawyer Lynn Wood on this consent order that's never been public, that he's fighting in federal court, representing the citizens of Georgia, not the campaign. You've got Grinnell, Adam Laxalt, and Matt Schlapp, who are guys that are all business. They're in Nevada, and they're saying, hey, this thing stinks to high heaven. You got the 135,000 in the supervisors race that was thrown out. You've got 15,000 either dead or moved. They say there's going to be a lot more. And we're not even talking about Arizona, but you got 5 battles going on. We're in federal court in Pennsylvania. You've seen that they didn't enforce the injunction. Is this a rearguard action, or is the movement spending its time and assisting the president and closing the victory on November 3rd?
If we do not fix this, if we do not expose this fraud, they're not going to get worse at it. They're going to get better at it. And we will never win another national election again. Those are the stakes in these fights in the several states that you've discussed. And I don't think that, like, to really get a full audit across the enterprise, we have to flip every one of these states at once. Here's my prediction, Steve. We flip one of these states that the media has called for Joe Biden, and the whole veneer comes down. The whole fiction that he's President-elect Joe Biden and that this thing is over is eroded if you're able to see that there was fraud sufficient to flip a state. Because then I think the American people will say, well, wait a second. Like, if you lied to us about Georgia, we got to ask some more questions about Wisconsin. Or if you lied to us about Wayne County, Michigan, how are we supposed to believe what went on in Fulton County, right? And I think that asking those tough questions is an important obligation the president has, not for his own political fortunes, but for the future of a populist movement that is very much opposed by the people who run these places where they're more susceptible to fraud.
Do you think, look, you're a pretty smart lawyer, do you think in this situation there's enough, as you see it, fraud on a scale that can actually flip it back to Trump? Or has the stuff been so commingled and so messed up that you just got to go the decertification, which eventually kicks it to the House of Representatives?
That will be a tough case to make in the absence of one of these states flipping, and the state that is trending.
I guarantee a state's got to flip.
Well, a state's got to flip, and I think Georgia is really on a positive trajectory for the president. I mean, look, they're not finding errors in Georgia of, like, tens or hundreds of ballots. I mean, they're finding discrepancies that are in the thousands of ballots. The state Republican Party chairman walking through how these incorrect tabulations result in like a 9,000 vote swing toward the president, and that's only looking at a small batch of counties. Imagine when they go statewide and really look at this thing.
Whereas people are asking us every day, where's Kemp? Kemp does not exist. If Donald Trump's not actively working for him to win to beat Stacey Abrams, where is Kemp? This lieutenant governor is a disaster. The Secretary of State is the worst. He's on MSNBC every day burying the president. How can this possibly happen in this party?
Well, I think the Secretary of State is largely covering for this consent decree with the Stacey Abrams crowd that we talked about. And for those who are listening who don't understand the significance of these decrees, what happens is when people don't have the power to change the laws through the elected legislature, they just go and sue. And then that lawsuit becomes a platform for the far left to sort of come together with the corporate elite establishment right and cut a deal that cuts out the representative process.
So
that
what
we
they
are
can't
supposed to
get,
have in
they
our
can't get a
republic.
statutory change because they don't really have the stroke. So
Right.
what they do is they get they sue, then get in a room with nobody watching, cut a consent, and that consent essentially becomes statutory.
And once a judge signs off on that, once the parties sign off on it, these private agreements entered into by litigants have the force of law that exceeds what the elected representatives of the people would advocate for and support. And when we talk about something as significant as voting, that is crazy. But to your point, the Democrats lawyered up. Stacey Abrams went and muscled up in the courtroom, and they got these things done while we were sort of planning the next Make America Great Again rally, which was fun and turned out many millions more people, but that I think lacked a requisite focus on the mechanics of voting, and we've got to get better at that.
They take it very holistically, like Stalin. Don't tell me who votes, tell me who counts the votes. They take victory in a very holistic way. We take it we bifurcate it, and that means that they always think of
Well,
it
and like
smarter.
how in Georgia, where you've got these discrepancies of like thousands upon thousands of votes, do you have two elections officials like signing off and certifying it, right? That's happening because there is not sufficient transparency and review. And I really believe that the dam could break open in Georgia. That could be the case where we find out the media lied to us, that the process was rotten, and then we really start to drill down in these
There's
other
all kind of
places.
work coming. I know we got John Fredericks. We'll try to get him on maybe in the second hour before the press conference. He's actually shifted his operation to Georgia. He says the rumor down there today is Kemp is going to try to expedite signing off on a certification either today or tomorrow to try to get this in back of it. Not going to happen. You still go to court and just.
Well, I mean, that's not helpful. I mean, this is.
But but for our audience, how can that happen? You're part of it. You're an outrider because you're a firebrand for the movement, you're a firebrand for the president, you're a firebrand for MAGA. But how can we have establishment Republicans who basically owe their existence to Trump's active campaigning for him, turn on not just him, but turn on really the fairness of an election.
You know, it's a tragic disappointment, but it perpetuates, Steve. I mean, I've spent the last 2 days in these, like, you know, organizing sessions with the Republican conference.
Yeah, why are you guys even here in D.C.?
Well, I mean, I can walk you through that, but this is an important point regarding the future of the movement. You know, everybody stands up in the leadership and pats themselves on the back because Republicans won seats, and everybody's like, oh, you know, we're beating the Democrats, we're clawing back to the majority, and no one gives Trump the credit. They all act as though like this was some movement driven by the establishment Republicans in Washington, and the reality is, in a lot of these districts, it was the enthusiasm for the president that drug Republicans over the finish line, and I'm certainly glad that happened. We want that to happen. Politics is a team sport, and that, by the way, is perhaps an important lesson for the governor of Georgia as well.
Well, so let's go back to this. You think that in D.C. because the House was fantastic. I mean, it was a great job. Obviously, that was driven by this movement and the president going around and delivering that mass, you know, particularly in the districts, the dirty 30 that we started to take back, right? Which, you remember, the ones that survived are all over Nancy Pelosi, that we can't do this again. In 2022, if the Trump movement is as powerful as it is today, we'll all get wiped out. You're saying right now, internally to D.C., that's not what the narrative is.
No, we believe that we took back a lot of these seats because of fantastic candidate recruitment and hard campaigns on the ground, and certainly that was a contributing factor. Yes. No doubt. I don't want to diminish that at all, but this movement is at its best when we are fired up for our transformational president, for our leader. And whether Donald Trump is in the White House or Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster, he is the leader of this movement, and he is the inspiration behind it.
So in this segment, we're going to wrap up. We're going to come back to what's happening in the House with Nancy Pelosi and the future of this movement. But for our audience, this is a fight worth having right now. Not about the future, but about right now to try to close in this victory.
Absolutely. And I think if we can get the remedies of ballot exclusion anywhere, it will create a tremendous amount of positive momentum for us. But Jack's absolutely right. We need patriots to stand up and tell the truth about what they've seen and what they've done.
This comes as moments ago the CDC bluntly warned Americans against traveling this Thanksgiving. Obviously, the president's personal epidemiologist on this, or he's not a real epidemiologist, Scott Atlas, is giving the exact opposite guidance. So hopefully this task force briefing might clear something up. As the weather gets colder, and the leaves are falling and winter approaches, we are experiencing what you could call the fall of America.
Welcome, Chuck Todd, in complete meltdown after the talked about the press conference today. The president's lawyers, also the first task force meeting, at least public task force meeting and press conference in a while. Chuck Todd and the rest of the mainstream media, MSNBC, did not cover the press conference. Welcome to the War Room, Thursday, the 19th of November, the year of our Lord, 2020. We have a special guest host in studio this afternoon, Congressman Matt Gaetz. Actually, Gaetz sold, this is a great thing about the audience, sold so many books, a firebrand. He was so amazed and mesmerized, had to come back over and thank us.
I'm like a stray cat, but instead of feeding me, if you sell my books, I just keep returning and coming back.
We love it. Okay, we've got Boris Epshteyn from the campaign's legal team. You had let's put the tweet up. Is it Chris Krebs? Krebs just left DHS. I guess he was summarily fired. He just left DHS en route to Silicon Valley, and his tweet, what did he say, is the scariest hour and a half in the history of American television?
Something to that effect.
Words to that effect.
He clearly didn't see my HBO documentary, The Swamp, which is also available on Amazon.
I want the merch and license rights for Gaetz. Okay, let's go to Boris Epshteyn. Boris, walk us through what you guys said today, the case you laid out, and why a guy like Krebs, who up until 24 hours ago was in charge of voter security and said everything was fine. This, in fact, the most secure in American history, and I don't know what Rudy Giuliani, Boris, and particularly Sidney Powell, who's scared him. So what went on today?
Because so many are actually very well educated. so many know exactly where they can get real news. So many have no excuse for rummaging around in the gutters of Facebook to try to find news that just fits their worldview, even though they know it's a lie. And I know you have friends who you found out last night who went to Yale, who believe this is a deep state conspiracy, who believe that spies were running around with sunglasses on, and they were whispering in dark shadows of basements to people who make voting machines and the New World Order.
Yeah.
Concocted a deep state conspiracy. This is what's happening, and it's not the, quote, deplorables. It's not the working man from, Oshkosh.
No, it's the spoiled rich boy from New York who goes to Maine in the summer.
It's the spoiled rich boy from New York.
Richie Rich.
It's all the Richie Riches out there that have made tons of money off of Donald Trump's tax cuts. It's all the people who see their order coming to an end.
But I believe, based on the data that Matt Braynard has collected, we absolutely need now some kind of independent audit or verification in these states. This is serious stuff. The important thing to realize, I believe these are all Republican, and Republicans were less likely to send in absentee ballots. That means for every 70, for every 100 that came in, 70 went to Biden, 30 went to Trump. It was something like that in many states. It may be that around half of the Republican ballots just never made it where they were going. Based on these sample sizes, it could be 20% in Wisconsin, 32% in Michigan, but 50% in Arizona. These margins are terrifying. We have another analysis from Matt Braynard, low act analysis. Infrequent voters in precincts with high turnout. State says they voted early or absentee, but told us they did not cast a ballot. This is the hard evidence that we need to look into. State counts and the percent of sample. In Arizona, 21 people are recorded as having voted when they said they didn't. That's just about 0.94%. In Georgia, 24 people, 0.85. Michigan was 2.8. Nevada, 2.2. Pennsylvania was 0.7. And Wisconsin was 0.6. He says, note, we have audio recordings of all of these calls. We are following up to get declarations, affidavits signed. Someone asked percentage of total sample or infrequent voters. He says total sample who answered the question. In some of these states, we can see that the sample is decently low, but still high enough to potentially impact the results of the election. And that's what's important. Arizona at 0.94%, Michigan at 2.8%, and Nevada at 2.2%. That is massive. That is absolutely massive. This is what you need to show people when they say, is it widespread? These are samples from numerous states showing, yes. I don't know what else to tell you. Widespread voter irregularity. Now that the alarms are going off, we have dozens or hundreds and even thousands of people reporting these things. Don't you think it's about time to launch some kind of formal investigation to figure out what's really going on here?
That's what makes this so sick, Mitch. This isn't about undermining Americans' faith in Joe Biden, one man, one party. It's about undermining America's faith in democracy, in the rule of law. And that's what you're doing right now. The gig is up. It's time to tell the president that he and Rudy and their confederacy of dunces need to stop making fools of themselves and let the next commander-in-chief get ready to protect and defend this country. Let the next president of the United States start preparing to distribute vaccines to tens of millions, to hundreds of millions of Americans. We are way past time. And the president that you are now running cover for, he's doing nothing but tweeting conspiracy theories and trying to undermine American democracy. Enough, Mitch. Enough.
There are no conspiracies, but there are also no coincidences. That is the pride of University Alabama Law School. Was Joe Scarborough? Was he law review at Alabama Law School? Joe, you're dumb as a stone. Okay, you've always been dumb as a stone. You know, you got the Southern, charm and be able to spin. That's how you get into Congress. He's like a guy like Cuomo. They want to be intellectuals, right? They want to be perceived as smart. Just look at the receipts. Look at the facts, sir. And look at Tim Pool. We're in the middle of that. We have Tim Pool. Tim Pool is maybe he's not progressive, but he's a liberal. Very strong voice on liberal. And he's talking about Matt Braynard. Matt was the digital head of our 16 campaign, right? And a brilliant guy. He's been grinding through this with a team of amazing data analysts that have heretofore been just grinding through it and have not been making these kind of sensational remarks. They're going through every piece of voter file. This is what Matt's known for. He was fantastic on the 2016 campaign. Trump would not have won if he had not laid the basic groundwork of the New York data operation. I know a lot of people, claim credit. They were doing data and doing this and doing that. It was him and his team that laid the groundwork. He's now going and getting hard evidence. This is what if Scarborough and those guys are so this is a conspiracy theory. Why are they not supporting what's going on in Wisconsin? Why are they not talking about the commission meeting the other night with the 5 hours? Why are they not talking about what's going on in Michigan? Why are they not talking about, they're all evidence-based, science-based, data-based until the math and the data and the evidence goes against them. And then they want to just go over the top. Mitch ain't going to do anything. Mitch got no stroke in this one. Okay? Zero. Because if Mitch opens his mouth, guess what? The deplorable is going to stay home in January, and Mitch is going to be minority leader. Everybody goes, you can't do that. It's going to stop everything. No. The deplorable is not just going to sit there and support the Mitt Romney, faction that wants to cave, that always wants to surrender, that gets scared when Mika and Joe go after him. Was that you about Yale? Is that Jack Maxey they're beating on about Yale? I didn't know you summered. I didn't know you summered up at Kennebunkport, right? The Bushes have been the first ones that cratered here. So you Yaleys. Tucker didn't go to Yale, did he?
No, but I thought they were talking about the guy who
Dartmouth?
vacationed in Maine. I thought that was Tucker, maybe.
Okay, fine. That's a shot. Anyway, in the middle of that was a long, cold open. But it's to the numbers. This is going to be data-driven, right? You've got the Wisconsin. They're caught dead to rights. Here's what their problem was. In stealing this in the middle of the night, they never factored in the massive landslide that Donald Trump brought when he brought the heat on November 3rd in the real vote. The Democratic Party, all their supporters on Wall Street, all their supporters of the corporatist agenda. It's not a conspiracy, Joe. It is the way the global economic system works. And if you do anything about economics, or if I could explain economics to you, basic finance, basic economics, you would understand how the globalization project works. Okay? In fact, I could get a crayon and maybe, sketch it out for you. And you could write it down with your number 2 pencil in your book. That we're never going to concede to that. We're never going to allow that. This great reset is not going to happen. Okay? Just like in 2016, we did not let a neoliberal neocon and Hillary Clinton take power. There's not going to be a great reset. They're going to try. They're going to try. But Reuters has got the screaming headline. No way. The deplorables understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to steal it. Not going to be stolen. Your legitimacy until Joe Biden, and by the way, Joe Biden puts out a proclamation today. It's not the 157th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. It's not in Biden land. No, it's Transgender Remembrance Day. Joe, I think what you ought to do is do transhuman Remembrance Day. And this is not coming from me. This is not a conspiracy. This is Klaus Schwab explaining the Fourth Industrial Revolution There's a clip, we'll play it in the afternoon show. He talks about what I was talking about the other day, the convergence of advanced chip design, robotics, artificial intelligence with biotechnology, right? Why do you think they're not all over? Today, one of the lead stories in the New York Times, thousands of words on yours truly, Stephen K. Bannon, and Miles Guo, and of course, Dr. Yan, and about how the war room, the vast right-wing conspiracy, coupled with the diaspora of Chinese fighting for their freedom and the freedom of their countrymen, have combined, right, to make Dr. Yan to really start a conspiracy theory about Wuhan, about the lab. And the evidence they throw in our faces, all the prominent guys say it came from a bat in the fresh market. Oh, that would be absolutely incorrect. No intelligence service, nobody on the inside New York Times, which and you could have quoted, believes it came from the wet market or believes it came from a bat in some bat cave. They know at a minimum it's a gain-of-function experiment gone awry, and there's many people that say, hey, it definitely was the bioweapon. Go back to January. They're signing the deal in the White House. Trump's going to win by 10 points. We got the CCP on the run. They're signing a deal that, hey, I didn't love the deal, but it's at least a start to try to break them, right? The deal, we want the Lighthouses deal, but at least we're confronting them and exposing them. And then the CCP virus hits, which we were the first one in the world. They call a pandemic. Remember, Mika and Joe, it was months later, many deaths later, until the mainstream media, when they finally figured out they're going to use it against Trump. I want to go now. This is about math, and we're going to have the legal team on at 11 o'clock. I thought they did a fantastic job. Besides hair and makeup, the stagecraft I thought was amazing. You had Joe DeGeneva, and you had Victoria Tenzing, and you had Sidney Powell. Tucker and Sidney have gotten into a little back and forth. That's okay. It's fine. I thought Tucker asked some good questions. I didn't know that she had offered all this other stuff later, but Sidney Powell's she's a tough hombre. She can take care of herself. She's coming out with math. She's coming out with affidavits. They're grinding. I've always said that one's the free option. And what I mean by that one is tough to pull together, but they got a team that's pulling it together. And Sidney is exactly the right person to do that. However, for what we have to do today, it's at the state level. It's at Wisconsin, Michigan, they're caught dead to rights, right? They're caught dead to rights. The Michigan head of the Michigan Senate is flying in now to the Oval Office for a meeting, and of course they're in full. We 1,000% support that. Of course, the mainstream media is in a total meltdown, right? He's intruding in politics. Well, this is political. He's the chief magistrate. Where's the FBI? Why is there not? Tim Pool asked a great question. Now that you have this type of evidence that's being shown by Brainerd and the team, why is there not a formal investigation? Where's Christopher Wray? He's got the hard drive from hell. That Biden sold their country out for cash money, and now you've got this. Now you've got where they're trying to steal it, and they're laughing at you. I want every deplorable and everybody in this audience. They're laughing at you. The question I've got is Fox News, and Fox News is making a business decision, but did they call the guys over at the Donald a cyber criminal activity? Was cyber criminal activity, is that listening to watching the war room is now a cyber crime? Okay, we're going to be back in a second with Raheem Kassab. We decided to do the bumper music instead of the lead-in music. That's okay. Frank can handle anything. He's the former UFC heavyweight champion, and I think the only former champion is multiple title holder. He's also the host of podcast Phone Booth Fighting, which I absolutely love the title of it, and a renowned patriot and American hero. Frank, thank you very much for joining us on War Room.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Listen, I know you've been upset about this, but give us your thoughts, since you're a professional fighter and an old school fighter. Give us your thoughts when you see these MAGA, like the MAGA march we had on Saturday, where you got literally 500,000 to 750,000 folks here, decent, hardworking deplorables of every ethnicity, race, gender, religion. They got their kids here. And then afterwards, as soon as the sun goes down, you've got these guys from Antifa and certain elements of Black Lives Matter, the cultural Marxist over there, that are literally trying to single people out, beat them up. Actually, some of them going in MAGA gear to let people feel that they're safe with other MAGA people and then attack them. You're a guy that does this for a living. How does it strike you what's going on here in America's streets?
Well, my emotional response was rage. I saw a bunch of cowards in their behavior. I saw individuals taking advantage of the fact they were outnumbering people. It looked like a bunch of hyenas attacking a lion. I saw, a lot of punches thrown from behind people's backs, not even having the courage or the bravado or the honor to stand their enemy eye to eye and face them in a way that I would be accustomed to and what I would consider at least respectable in any kind of dispute. It was upsetting. And, the part that really upset me also is that I've been told now for the last couple of months that, that social media is distorting my view, that, just listen to, the legitimate established journalists and mainstream media, and we will, tell you the truth. Well, until my friend Luke and Chris sent me these videos and brought it to my attention on Twitter, I hadn't even noticed that this was going on. So here I'm sitting there going, wow, how come I'm just new to this and finding out about this when, I'm always every morning, every evening in between practice, I'm constantly going through the different news channels on my phone, and no one's talking about this. No one brought it to my attention. And I thought that was also more insult to injury.
Why do you think the mainstream media is not covering this? Because you're correct, particularly at this parade, after this march the other day, which was really this massive outpouring, and it couldn't have been more positive. It was almost joyous. And these are people that are hunkered down for the fight, not to let this election be stolen. And what happened in D.C. was actually more brutal than I think even social media is showing. But why do you think the mainstream media doesn't have the respect for folks like yourselves and others who are not totally politicized and certainly not part of the partisan faction that supports President Trump? Why do you think they don't want folks like you to see this information?
Well, I think that because it'll obviously persuade me and show me the truth of the matter. That's like, hey, you guys are screaming oppression. We're victims. We're being discriminated against. And then I watch this video. I'm like, wow, you oppressed individuals. There's 8 of you beating up on one guy who's holding a flag, who's maybe has an idealist or ideology that's different than yours, and you're going to respond through not only just being violent, but I mean, for no other better word, but just you're a bully. You're trying to jump someone from behind in a group. I mean, you can see here in the picture, what chance does this individual have against, it appears to be 7 or 8 different guys attacking him, all wearing masks because they're afraid to show who they are, and attacking a guy like that. It just, it definitely brought a knee-jerk response for me, and I feel that it really was discouraging also to see that the police officers who are supposed to be the reason why we don't want to defund the police is for these exact reasons, because we've expected there. It made me realize that, I get now why the left wants to defund the police, because if left to run on the streets, I see who's doing what.
When you first came out and just started talking about this, what was the immediate response you got from the Twitterverse and from others on social media? What was because you're not like, was it Masvidal and Covington? There's a faction in the UFC and others of the Ultimate Fighters, and President Trump's been a big supporter. He knows the owner. He's gone to a bunch of matches. He's been very out front about that. And there's also a big element of your community, of your fan base, and of obviously some of the fighters that are among the hardest core loyalists to President Trump. And you're just a guy out there. You're a fighter, but you're just kind of your average citizen. When you first started doing this, what was the blowback that you got?
No, it's strange because most of my friends and family know that I'm pretty middle of the lane kind of guy. There's some times I really like and I agree with what Trump has done in the Republican Party and Mitch McConnell. And there are times where I'm not so happy with situations, and back and forth. So it's really hard for me to stake my flag and just, no matter what, I'm going to take this side, right or wrong. But I feel that the reason why it draws our attention, because if you think of a situation where it's individuals that are taken advantage of and being beat down like that, it creates it to where the warrior type mindset of the guys that are in the UFC, the guys that are warriors, that we work hard for what we have. We don't look for people to give us handouts. Everything in our DNA says I will drag myself up and I'll fight hard. So when we see situations like that, it causes you to, someone like myself who's been pretty neutral back and forth, it's hard for me not to jump completely on the conservative side and go, hey, you know what? Wrong is wrong and this is wrong.
Would you have any guidance? Look, people look up to you as a warrior. Would you have any guidance to basically the average man or woman out there, the father and mother, as they go to these parades? There'll be, I think, some in Georgia this weekend. There may be some in Lansing, Michigan next week. I think President Trump's going to go on the road. And there's going to be more rallies where President Trump is not there. What advice do you just have to the basic mom and dad out there that are going to go to rally, maybe take their kids or just go with a group of friends? What would you tell them? How would you tell them to behave?
Well, if I had a time machine and I can go back 5 years, I would tell them, hey, you guys need to train, learn how to protect yourself, and realize that there are people that are going to try to take advantage of you and what we're seeing in these videos. But for the most part now, with short notice, I would say, look, don't bring your children with you. Go into a situation knowing that you are very high likelihood of being accosted, that you're going to be attacked. Don't have your kids. You still got to stand up for what you believe in. You're still going to have to fight. That's just the nature of the beast. You're not going to be able to sit at home and put our tail between our legs. But going out there, if I know I'm going to be in a situation that's not desirable, I'm going to be in a confrontation, I think I'm not going to bring my children. My wife's meaner than I am, so she can come along. But for the most part, I would try to just limit my, any kind of injuries to my family.
What about the training though? What do you recommend to people that want to say, "Hey, am I be in these situations?" And because look, this is not going to get easier. We metaphorically talk about, hey, putting heads on pikes as figures of speech, stuff like that. But we've been the one shows that's gone out of its way to say, we don't want violence and never want violence. But people have to understand, if you're going to go out and do these demonstrations in the years to come, this is not going to go away. You see what's happening in Michigan, even with a state senator trying to get on a plane. He's surrounded by people. What would you recommend people do about getting into a training program?
I think there's just that. MMA now has shown how effective those arts are. Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, all combined in one. It's a great way to train your mind, your spirit, make you a better person. And it gives you tools on how to deal with a situation when you're in an unarmed combative. And on top of that, hey, I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I'm not trying to, incite any kind of violence, but I mean that's what it's for, is to protect yourself, protect your ideals, and, become very accustomed with how to use a weapon, because that's, I feel as the head of the household, that's my responsibility to protect my family and be that, the sheepdog. And that's the situation I think that people have to realize that you're in now. So far I just want to hear and have a conversation. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing peaceful protesters because they're holding a flag that upsets somebody being attacked. Because maybe their rhetoric you don't agree with, now you're responding with physical violence. So be prepared for physical violence and realize that that's now the world that we're entering into.
Frank, last thing, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on in this time where we're going through all the mathematics and the legal and everything like that, I think is very important. Candace Owens, who I think the world of, went after Vogue magazine, I think for the first time in its 127 year, American Vogue, I think is, for the first time, I believe it's 127 years, 147 years, had a man on its cover, a man in quotes, had Harry Styles on his cover, and I think in the photo shoot he's wearing a dress for the bulk of the photos. And Candace Owens went after it and specifically said, "This is one of the central problems we have today is the raising of young men to actually be men." And I thought it'd be a perfect question for you. What do you think we stand? Is Candace Owens right? Is one of the problems we have in modern society is a loss of manliness?
Absolutely. I'm being told that masculinity is toxic. And I like, there's actually a very good PragerU video on toxic masculinity. And I think my time here is short, but anybody worth watching, worth the time, please click on that. It explains it in a nutshell. And now, and look, I'm sympathetic towards anybody that has different issues of identity. Hey, look, we're all in this together. We'll help each other out. But the lines now are being so muddled that it's so confusing that it's even unfair. I feel that, for example, I just read the other night that the gymnastics, American gymnastics, in the U.S. is allowing now people to identify with whatever gender they want to identify with, and that's who they compete with. So basically, I can now go out to an event and say, hey, I'm a woman, and I'm going to compete with the females. And as an athlete and the father of a female fighter, my daughter is a very elite athlete, but there's still a reason why I have her fight with other women and don't have her. I would be appalled at the situation where, like, well, this guy, he now is a woman, it's a her, and she's identifying in this line, so she's now available to fight your daughter. I'll be like, no, that's never going to happen. That's crazy. How are we even having this conversation? I feel like this is the Twilight Zone.
Frank, how do people get more access, particularly to how they can get into a training program and also your podcast, social media? How do people get access to you?
Well, I do a podcast. We were doing it weekly, but my podcast partner is a little on the liberal side, and so we haven't been able to get together as much as I'd like to. But I have been doing my own things also on my Facebook page, on my fan page at the Frank Mir, which you can follow me at the Frank Mir, both Instagram and Twitter. But I do a Mind of Mir, where I sit down and talk a little bit about martial arts, also my lifestyle, my philosophy on how I approach things, which is, like, for example, there's the old saying that it's much better to be a warrior in a garden than to be a gardener during a war. And I feel like that's something people should take to heart now and realize that's the situation we're in. I don't expect for war, but through my training and through looking, anybody at home can find a local gym. If you, hit me up on Instagram, I can usually connect people with different coaches and try to, fit what you're looking for. But everybody should be training and preparing. And hopefully we never need it. That's kind of the key of martial arts. Learn how to fight and hope that you never have to. But it's looking less and less that way as the days go on.
The Mind of Mir. That mind would be Frank Mir. Frank, thank you so much for joining us today in War Room Pandemic.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
This is the key point. The key point is he's not a partisan, but he can see what's going on. This is the Great Awakening. It's the Frank Mirs of the world. People that are not totally tied to politics, right? That are not totally tied to this, that just with their own eyes, they're going to see the signal and separate out the noise. And that's what's going to join this greater cause.
I should say the news conference featured Rudy Giuliani, so I think Trump is using the term lawyers very loosely.
He's the one who was prosecuting under the RICO Act, the way I understand it, and now he's representing a mob family. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what happened to him.
This judge's opinion is the functional equivalent of Rudy getting dunked on here. And
only one American sealed Trump's fate, and that happened today. And that was Rudy Giuliani. He became a metaphor for the campaign melting into a dark puddle of deception.
If you've got the evidence of fraud presented, and what's happened here is, quite frankly, the conduct of the president's legal team has been a national embarrassment.
It was a pathetic display, and it's become so common when Rudy Giuliani gets in front of a camera or a microphone. He is a legal buffoon.
Well, I thought it was a train wreck, Chuck. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and but it's, on the one hand, it's outrageous. On the other hand, it's really not surprising. So, but it's all.
Well, let me give you my completely objective, not wishful thinking, constitutional analysis. They have 2 or 3 legal constitutional paths. For example, in Pennsylvania, they have 2 very strong legal arguments. One, that the courts changed what the legislature did about counting ballots after the end of Election Day. That's a winning issue in the Supreme Court. I don't necessarily support it, but it's a winning issue in the Supreme Court. And Justice Alito has already hinted that's a winning issue. They also have a winning issue in the Supreme Court on equal protection, that some counties allowed flawed ballots to be cured while others didn't. Bush versus Gore suggests that an equal protection argument can prevail. The problem with that argument is they don't have the numbers necessarily to support it. If it's right that Biden's ahead by some 70 or 80,000 votes, they have to show enough contested votes under those 2 legal theories to change the outcome. The other legal theory they have, which is a potentially strong one, is that the computers, either fraudulently or by glitches, changed hundreds of thousands of votes. There are enough votes to make a difference, but I haven't seen the evidence to support that. So in one case, they don't have the numbers. In another case, they don't seem yet to have the evidence. Maybe they do. I haven't seen it. But the legal theory is there to support them if they have the numbers and they have the evidence.
Fine.
Welcome to the War Room. You're live on Capitol Hill. It's Monday, the 23rd of November, the year of our Lord 2020. Why do we keep giving those great cold opens with the thing? Producer Vish. We'll check with Denver here in a moment. Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Kassam, Jack Maxey. We're going to be joined by Greg Mans. He's working on some stuff right now. A lot going on. Cold open right there. Full on beatdown on Rudy Giuliani until you get to one of the most respected constitutional lawyers in the country who's got no dog in this fight, right? Dershowitz, although he's a supporter of the president. He says, hey, you got two legal arguments that are stone cold winners at the Supreme Court. On one case, you just have to show the numbers. In the other case, with the computers and what Sidney Powell's doing, the evidence. But to stick with the former, you just have to show the numbers, right? Donald Trump was up by 800,000 votes before all the illegal ballots came in. And why the Democrats so quickly? Why did they keep the observers away? Why did they separate so quickly the envelopes from those ballots? Clearly, they're trying to steal it. And I got news for you. The numbers are coming. With all the hate dumped on Rudy, right, and his team, Dershowitz comes back and reaffirms that actually what they're arguing is a winner. Dershowitz went on, and this was Maria Bartiromo yesterday. Dershowitz actually went on and continued, says, hey, the Supreme Court's not going to give you a Pyrrhic victory, right? They're not going to sit here and say this is correct, but you don't have the numbers. So that would upend every apple cart, right? So you got to come with the math before I think they even review it. So it's incumbent upon the data guys and the people working on this, and there are many teams working on this, to deliver the numbers. And I think you're going to be quite surprised by this. We're going to have a number of these analyses today. We're going to have Darren Beatty on talking about an amazing story that was up on Revolver over the weekend, right, that blew everybody away, went viral. We're going to go back to Raheem Kassam and talk about the National Pulse has really been at the cutting edge of this. Their stories went back around the internet today or over the weekend as people start to look at Stephen Miller and Yale and everything that your team was pulling together. This is when you're going to get down to it. The headline. So look, I realize everybody's anxious. You got the Sidney Powell thing. We'll walk you through all of it. Remember, this is the fog of war. You're in the middle of it. That's why you're here in the war room. Keep your eye on the prize. Let's keep downrange. Let's keep focused. Why are they attacking Rudy so hard? It's a clown show. It's ridiculous. It's this and that. And then Dershowitz comes up. Yeah, you know, their arguments are actually, he didn't say they have standing. They didn't say they're pretty good arguments. He didn't say, hey, they may lose a district but win an appellate. He said, these are winners. In that interview, go back and look at it. He says, hey, Alito already told you that. Alito signaled to you, you got a winner here, right? You got a winner. And there's people beavering away 24/7 all over the place to deliver the math. And the math can be and will be delivered. That's why they're in meltdown. That's why they're in full beatdown. And look, don't take it from Steve Bannon. Let's take it from Zucker and CNN. CNN's headline this morning, do we have that up in Denver? Can we swap out Miles Grove's bumper music for I'm just kidding. Guys in Denver, you do a fantastic job. Vish, you do a fantastic job. Every now and again, we have a nit. We have a little nit. I would love that to be the open music, but I think it's better as the bumper music. So here's the thing. CNN has a headline up. So is that the headline? What does that headline say? Can you read that for me, Raheem? I don't have my glasses on.
Vote certification in Michigan and Pennsylvania in question.
Oh, my God. Votes. What have we said for months? Can't certify this vote. No electoral college. Goes to Nancy Pelosi, that big old gavel sucking on a lemon, right? Goes to the House of Representatives. Donald Trump's victory is reaffirmed. What's that big old headline up in Zucker? Do you think they want to put that headline up on a Monday morning? That was actually up from, I think, late last night. They're in full-on panic. They're in full-on panic. One of the reasons they're in panic, they realize although it's got a little bit of the gang that couldn't shoot straight to it. There's a little bit of the of like Peanuts or the Bad News Bears. Okay, it's got a little bit of Bad News Bears to him. It's got a little bit of what's the great the great hockey movies, right? It's got a little bit of Mighty Ducks. Got a little bit of Mighty Ducks. Also got a little bit of the Paul Newman. What's that favorite? The Hanson Brothers. I love that.
Slapshot.
Slapshot. Got a little bit of Slapshot in it.
It's the Bad News Bears, and we have Rudy as Kelly Lee.
Yeah,
right?
Look, Rudy leaks a little oil. We saw that at the press conference the other day. He's leaking a little oil.
And Sydney's Tatum O'Neal, the pitcher.
Hey, she's hard as a brick. Okay, listen, that whole thing, and I'll get into it. She's throwing down her, and I've been saying in the show. Go back and let's see what I've been saying. She's a free option. And in finance, that means, hey, if it happens, bang, it's a big winner. But I don't need it. And here's the reason. What she's going after is something so deep and so systemic that could actually unravel it all. And one of the reasons I know that, this is not Steve Bannon saying this, is Facebook saying it. We're trying to get Jana Bianco of the American Bondholders thing. They putting up today a story from G News. And G News just goes through, and by the way, I want to thank the G News guys that do this in Mandarin for us in GTV. The G News guys just do a factual story that lays out the history of smart tech, its ownership, all this CFIUS stuff, and involvement with China and other countries throughout the world, because this thing's been moving all over, right? They just laid a factual story. Well, she contacts me, Dark 30, and all of her people at the American Bond Foundation who are hardcore war room listeners, they're putting this thing up on Facebook, and Facebook is immediately taking it down. And they said they've taken it down because it's in the first thing they say it's got like adult information in it or something, inappropriate adult information. They're just looking for any reason. They're just taking it down. Sidney Powell is going after the absolute kill shot for the whole thing. One thing I want to get back up, I sent, and I'll send it again. Jonathan Turley wrote a piece in The Hill yesterday. It said this is the Dark Star strategy. I sent it out to the team. It was fantastic. Turley, who's also, he testified for the president, but he's no fan of Trump. He's up front about not being a fan of Trump. He wrote about what the strategy here was like at the end of Star Wars, where you have the rebel army, and they go, they fly into the trench on the Dark Star, and they take the one shot down the ventilation system and blow up the Dark Star, right? The Death Star. The Death Star. So I thought only boomers were supposed to know that. So the Death Star. And it was he actually laid out almost state by state. We'll put that up block by block exactly what this was. Long story short, today there's a lot of things happening. The Pennsylvania leadership in the House and the Senate, and the House has already voted for a complete thorough audit of the entire state. We're now hearing they're supposed to be certifying at the district levels today. I think Luzerne County has already said that they're not going to certify this vote, right? I think you have a couple others pop up. There are rumors about that today after this meeting, they may actually start having hearings in Pennsylvania at the House level. The same group that had the hearing last week with Dominion Systems, the Dominion guy didn't show up. By the way, note to self, as we move through this, the personalities involved was the dramatis person. My Latin's so bad. I'm gonna get my Yale guy in here in a second to do that. But yesterday, Dominion is going to have this big thing at noon. Maria Bartiromo's pumping it up. Everybody on Fox is pumping it at noon on Fox. It's going to be Dominion system guy hiding from everybody at a hearing where he's got to do it under oath. He's going to be on Fox at noon. Everybody stay tuned. Everybody's flipping on there. Fox is getting everybody leaving One America. They're all leaving Newsmax. They're all coming back because Chris Wallace and the team are going to be eviscerating the Dominion guy. And who shows up? Michael Steele. You can't make this stuff up. Note to Dominion Systems. The way to convince the Trump movement and the deplorables that something's legit, that something's not shady, is not to hire Michael Steele. This is not Michael Steele. He used to be the RNC chairman. And I like Michael Steele, good guy. He's off the reservation. I mean, he's wandering around somewhere. I don't even know. I think it's from the time, ever since he had that S&M club they had on the credit card of doing a donor meeting out in L.A. He hasn't been the same since, right? So, but not that Michael Steele, who's actually a good guy. This is one of the sleaze. This guy literally is the creature from the Black Lagoon when you talk about swamp. This was John Boehner's communications guy. This guy, Michael Steele, could change a $9 bill into threes, okay? He shows up as the spokesman, one lie and one spin after the next. And I'm sitting there going, people are just blowing up, go, how do you could not pick a more corrupt guy than Michael Steele, but we're getting all this. Here's the point. They're going nuts because relentlessly this thing's moving forward. It's moving forward in courts. It's moving forward in legislature. It's moving forward at things. And people, legit people, the two guys out, man and woman out in Wayne County, I don't want to certify this until they try to crush them. Then they say, I'll certify it subject to a complete audit of Wayne County. And say, yeah, fine, just sign certification. As soon as they go, sorry, not sorry, no certification. In Luzerne County, all over the nation, the word is we ain't certifying the steal. Okay, we're going to be back in a second. Darren Bailey, we're going to get down to numbers and some math. And then we're going to get back to all of this. Okay? We're winning. CNN would not have put up that headline if we were not winning. Okay? Hunker down and let's get into the grind. Be back in a moment.
Use the Force, Luke. The Force is strong in this one. I have you now. What? Yahoo! Look out! You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home. Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Engaged. Right there, you're seeing on the screen for our radio audience, a podcast. It's a really incredible view of 500 or so people early in the morning coming to be observers in Wisconsin. This Wisconsin thing is fantastic. You already got the Democrats complaining. They're saying it's too intense. That guys are contesting every ballot. There was an article in The Hill that said they're contesting every ballot. They're contesting every signature. This is the black hats of the Iron Brigade of Wisconsin. Wisconsin nice, but no give up to them, no back down to them at all. Like the old Green Bay Packers, right? The Vince Lombardi. They're not backing down. They're being very polite, but they're calling everything into question. And it's that type of stick-to-itiveness that's going to win here. Remember, they think that, and I know tons, I think I said earlier, tons of hedge fund guys are Democrats and guys that understand math. And I haven't met one person yet that thinks that this thing was legit, right? They absolutely it's a scam. It's just that you have to prove it. And we understand that. That's just the way, that's the rules of the game, right? It's just like electoral college versus popular vote. It's match play versus medal, in a golf terminology. We have rules of the game here. There's a ticking clock. I think that's why it's good that Sidney Powell now has been, the Kraken has been unencumbered with having to go through the niceties of what the campaign has to, because they have to deal with senators, they have to deal with state legislatures. Today, you've got the guys in Pennsylvania coming. And look, the state legislatures are at a different level than, obviously guys in Congress and the President of the United States. You saw the other day, wasn't exactly a profile in courage in Michigan. They came and said, hey, we haven't seen any irregularities, and they actually haven't been that aggressive in pursuing these things. In Pennsylvania, you may see the same things, but you've got certain people in the Pennsylvania. We got some breaking news, Greg?
Yep. So breaking news out of Pennsylvania, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals has granted expedited review for the Trump campaign's appeal in Pennsylvania.
So that's the judge that was so nice to Rudy the other day?
Yep, that was the one coming from the Middle District.
So it is. So they granted an appeal. Okay, so this thing will go to appellate court now, and Rudy, I think they've signed up some great appellate lawyers that have signed on to the case here. So Raheem, Jack, give us this afternoon.
Yeah,
we're going to have Kelly's lawsuit in Pennsylvania on the constitutional question. We're going to have Phil Klein and the folks from Thomas More. We're going to have a live update from Michigan of what's going on there. That thing, I think, starts mid-afternoon today. Testimony in this about the certification of the votes. There's more going on in Pennsylvania, particularly on the data side. We got another big update in Georgia that we're going to get to in the afternoon. So we've got, this thing is constantly churning. There's fighting on many fronts. I think news from Arizona and from Nevada. So Raheem.
And in the live chat, people are saying which Star Wars characters are the team. So they've said Steve is Yoda. They've said, I'm going to say that Vish is Chewbacca. It's kind of easy. You got Han Solo over here. I think we've got an Ewok over there. And of course, I'm calling myself. They're saying Rudy is. Jonathan Turley said Rudy is Luke Skywalker. With the 1 in a million shot. Right. And I'm claiming Obi-Wan for myself.
God, I thought I was Obi-Wan, but hey,
you can have Obi-Wan. I'll take Lando Calrissian.
I'll take.
Hey, listen, I have something to say to the audience. When looking at that group of people in Wisconsin, I'm reminded of the Iron Battalion that came out of Wisconsin. Vince Lombardi, you show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. People of Wisconsin are not going to back down. The good, honest people of Michigan are not going to back down. Stand your ground, people. This is a time to be counted, to stand up and fight for your democracy and fight for your Constitution. We are not going to let Donald Trump be prosecuted in a sham trial here with bad evidence.